drive us around today. So I hope you're comfortable. We'll be spending quite some time outside the bus, so fingers crossed it's gonna stay nice, blue and sunny. We had a few raindrops, but I think that must be all for today.
Thank you very much.
Is a convent of cloistered nuns of clausura. So those are the nuns that once they set foot in there, they don't come out anymore because they dedicate their lives to the saints of the world. We have 6 of these convents still in the islands, a total of around 60 nuns altogether. And in this one there is just one nun left. She's 72 years old and she's holding on to this convent with dear life, hoping that once she passes away it won't get in the hands of a hotelier, but it was remain serving the purpose it was originally built for. It's one of the Benedictine nuns. Movie makers decide to record the movie over here because this is a movie set ready to go. You just adapt it a little bit and you're centuries away or a different country. Come on the cake. This house is 14th century, and in that time houses were built just 1 floor high, had a flat roof on which they had items they could throw down in case of an attack. So we're in a fortification, and there were still problems with pirate attacks. So you can imagine it must have been really bad in the past. Now these houses didn't have any windows in the facade because they only had a large courtyard where the light can come in 2 meters around it. So you leave the outside there's a hard one. They live in now. In the past, they don't have air conditioning, so when a lot of wind passes by, with a lot of sea salt in it, it literally eats the stone. The stone is prone to erosion, so they start looking like sponges. This building is now being used as the National Archive, but in the past it was the Banca Giuratale, where people had to pay their taxes. We're talking 15th and 16th century already. Let's find a spot here on the opposite side, sir. So we won't be bothered by too much traffic. Staying on the side, if you'd like to take some photographs, please do so. You can come and join me to the side here. Medina Cathedral. Again, it's not the first church in history because the old church was destroyed mostly by the earthquake in 1693. Small part was left and a new church was built around it, the one you see over here, and that was in 1702. And although it's after the earthquake, it's still done in Baroque because the architect was a Maltese guy, Lorenzo Caffa, and his style was Baroque. It's dedicated to the conversion of St. Paul. So if you look to the 2 towers, above the bells, look to the 2 towers, you can identify a sword pointing up, a snake going around it, and a crown on top of it. That's the symbol of St. And the arch door is the oldest building in Medina. It's Palazzo Santa Sofia, and it dates back to 1233. The bottom part, because the second floor, the floor above it, you can see it was done much later because the quality of the stone is newer. And it has beautiful windows, which we call Norman style windows. In the past it used to be just one palace. Of course you can see the end of the street, but if you just move up 1 meter you don't see the end of the street anymore. And that's the effect for the use of bow and arrow, but you would put it on the side. Coming up now to the left we have a white statue, which is Our Lady of Mount Carmel, because we're going to pass the Carmelite Church. And the flag on top of the door with the risen Christ on it. And Easter, remember Easter Sunday. And with metal frames. Right side is now a private museum. It used to be owned by a Swedish shipping merchant, and everything of art that he collected in his life, he made sure it remained in there as a museum. This here used to be the area of the whole Jewish community. They had their own silk market, their own school, their synagogue. But in 1492, Malta was territory of Spain. Isabel and Ferdinand were ruling, and they sent all the Jewish people out of Spain, but also out of Malta. So.
Ja, dat is een busje leeggespeeld. Ja. Toeristen zien was.
Yun yung bulay, no?
Ze willen dat soort.
Pizza St. Paul's Cathedral. And the houses here is all like cathedral order and design. It's dedicated to St. Paul.
Down there in 2017. Yeah.
Just pass on naked to see if I can find the clients. So our main industry here in Malta is tourism, over 30%. So you can imagine that when COVID hit, it hit us pretty badly, just like many other countries that rely on tourism as their main income. Fortunately, it has picked up, and even better than it used to be, so we're very happy about that. And we have a free port in the southern part of the island, which is a container harbor where containers can be stored, let's say traveling to from Asia to Northern Europe or vice versa. So both companies have a shorter distance, saves time, saves money, and then Malta still has this strategic position right in the middle, bordered in the streets of Valletta. And you can't imagine, even Jurassic World, the latest, the last one, we had dinosaurs running around our capital, virtually. Well, quite a famous movie, an old one, the real-life Popeye movie, starring Robin Williams. Yeah, maybe you're wondering, small island, how is everything organized here? For instance, education. Well, we have public schools. Governmental schools are all Catholic, and the children all wear uniforms here. That's maybe a British inheritance. And in the schools, they teach both in Maltese and in English, as I mentioned before. And they're mixed classes. So primary is 6 years, secondary 5 years, then they go to college. College is an in-between between secondary level and university, where they have 2 subjects as A level and the rest is intermediate. And then depending on what they want to study, they need to have requirements to enter into university. So we have our own university here. It's also governmental run. All subjects are available, and there are 14 faculties. And university, just like the other schools, are free of charge. So everyone here has equal opportunities to study, even if the parents could not afford it. A Catholic country, families used to be quite large in the past, wages always have been low, so it would deprive some children of a future education, and that's why university has been made free. Besides that, they get a stipend of 100 to 150 euros a month for 9 months of the year, because the 3 months of summer holiday is not being paid out. And with that money, they buy their books and other items they need for their course, and their clothing and daily needs. And they used to pay transport as well, public transport from home to school, vice versa. But since 3 years, public transport has been made free for all the local people. We don't pay for our route buses here. So if you consider these are very small islands, that is out of it. And it means that if you have to go to hospital, you're being treated free of charge. Any medication they give to you at that time is given to you free of charge. If you need therapy or rehabilitation after that and it's done in hospital, it's free of charge. And it's all of very high standard. Other medication, let's say if you feel ill and need some antibiotics, you need to buy it yourself. But people with a chronic illness can apply for what we call a yellow card, on which is written which medication they need constantly. And they can pick that up for free at designated pharmacies. So here we're close by those 4 high towers we saw from the distance from Medina. This is a new build-up area. It's an industrial part here. Those are all offices, office spaces that can be rented. Not the nicest of buildings, unfortunately. A bit out of place, you could say. And the road that we're going to drive along, on the left, you see a lot of arches. You might have seen some already. We will see some more, and those are remains of a well, when we talk about Valletta, I have to talk about the Order of the Knights of St. John, because they are the ones who had Valletta built. And the order originated in the year 1099 when 2 tradesmen from Amalfi from Italy went to the Holy Land. And on the way they met up with crusaders who were traveling in the same direction. These were attacked by pirates, got wounded, and these 2 men started to help these people. And more wounded crusaders were brought in, even poor people were served. It became a hospital, which became larger and larger. And by the year 1113, they were declared an official order. A military order, because they had to fight back against the pirates as well, and a hospitaller order for the setting up of hospitals. And they were named after their patron saint, St. John the Baptist, so therefore the Order of St. John. After some time they had to leave Jerusalem, somebody else came into power, and they ended up on the island of Cyprus, where they lived for about 19 years. And that's the first time they were attacked by the Turkish Ottoman power. It was a really powerful people, and they took over the whole Mediterranean. So the knights, they had to leave, and they ended up on the Greek island of Rhodos, where they lived for over 200 years and became very large as an organization. But again, Turkish Ottoman power came to attack, knights had to leave, and they traveled around the Mediterranean for 7 years looking for a place to stay, which they couldn't find. And then King Charles V of Spain offered them this island of Malta on loan. As I mentioned before, capital was Medina. Knights didn't want to live there, far away from the harbor, so they went to live in a town called Vittoriosa, which is on the opposite side of your ship in the harbor. There's a large fortress there at the tip, Fort St. Angelo. Upon it, it was a peninsula. Yeah. It was a hill called Mount Shibaraz, and the knights had no time to make the hill flat first, which would have been a lot easier for them, and for us today, to go from one side to the other. So there's still quite a lot of steep streets in Valletta, but what we are going to walk is mostly flat. And in 5 years' time, 5 kilometers of fortification wall was built. Very, very impressive. And not by the knights themselves, because these knights didn't lift a finger, only to point out where they wanted what. So they had all the slaves to do all the hard work, and most of them were Turkish Ottomans and captured pirates. And then after all the walls were completed, that's when the most important buildings of the knights were constructed. Now these knights, they had to be of at least 4 generations nobility, and they had 4 rules, 4 virtues to obey to. Nobility, charity, poverty, chastity. I don't know them all, and I'm pretty sure they didn't obey all neither. But chastity meant they were not allowed to get married, nor have relationships, and definitely not allowed to have kids. So these knights were all priests. They all have FR in front of their name, frater. And then out of these knights, they would choose their leader, their grand master, who would remain until he died, and then they would choose a new one. A bit of the system like of the Pope, right? And the knights were divided in 8 groups, 8 langues, and a langue can be compared to a land region or to a dialect. So there were 3 groups of French-speaking knights, France, Provence, and Auvergne, because France was not yet one country as it is today. There were 2 groups of Spanish-speaking knights. Castile, Leon, Portugal was one, and the other was Aragon. Then was a German-speaking, an English-speaking, and an Italian-speaking group. And together they were the Order of St. John. Look here on the right, horse and pony, in the middle of the road. Now, and all these knights, since they came from different areas and had their own customs and traditions, they couldn't live in the same house. So that's why they all got their own home or headquarter, which we call auberge. And auberge is the French word for hotel and hostel. And we'll see a few of those as we walk through some of the streets of Valletta. This is a typical local town. This is Hamroen, and look at all the closed balconies. Very typical feature in the Maltese traditional houses. These are all town houses, as we call them, since they have the closed balcony. And this closed balcony is an old tradition dating back to the time of the Moorish. Moorish ladies were like Arabic ladies who were not allowed to be seen in the streets, but they did want to know what was happening. Young ladies. So they got a high balcony. It was closed with shuttered windows, so they were able to see everything happening in the street, but people from the street could not see the ladies up there. A little bit like the burqa of today, but these women are a bit more flexible, you could say. On Saturday afternoon, they don't reopen. And they just won the Football League, so that's why all the flags in black and red can be seen. They won the Premier Division Football League here in Malta. So slowly we're approaching Valletta. And in the 17th century, Valletta was overcrowded, had 25,000 inhabitants. So the knights decided to build a new town in front of Valletta and also have it surrounded with fortifications. It was named after its architect, Mr. Floriani, so the town is called Floriana. And we'll have to pass through it to make our way to Valletta. So. variety of the fossils. So after my tour in Valletta, I will take those of you down back to the ship, obviously, and that will be around 3. But you have the opportunity, obviously, to remain in Valletta if you like to. Maybe you like to go for lunch, go do some shopping, sit in one of the nice terraces with a drink. So I will show you when we go to the gardens, which is the quickest and easiest way back to the harbor by means of a lift and a short walk, okay? But never leave the group without telling me so, because I need to take your whisper. I need that listening device. I need to collect those from you after the tour. So let's do the walking tour, and then I give a meeting point where to meet, just to go back to the bus later. Those of you who want to stay, you're free to do so, obviously. But then I will have to take your whisper from you. So if you intend on staying, don't leave anything on the bus in a minute. If you are sure you're coming back to the ship, if you want to leave something on the bus, that's no problem then. Now, coming up ahead of us is the entrance gate into the suburb of Valletta, Floriana, which I just mentioned. One arch is from the time of the Knights. The second arch was done by the British for a better flow of people and traffic. Looks a bit like the Arc de Triomphe, that's right ahead of us here, coming up on your right. And now parts of the wall have been taken away, left and right, to give an even better access into this town and towards Valletta. But if you look to the left and to the right behind the trees and bushes, you can still see remains of the fortifications. So very soon on the right, with the red poles in front of it, this is the side of the main church of Floriana, dedicated to Publius, Saint Publius. Very strange square here on the right. It looks like there used to be columns there that have been chopped off, but this is what we call the granaries. There are grain storages underground, which used to be used as grain storage, not anymore. But those round things were like lids to close the silos. And this is squares used for events, concert for instance. You're very busy, so mind your pockets and your bags, please. On the left, we've got a large monument, which is the Independence Monument, 21st September 1964. Just wait for the summer crossing. The fountain that is in front of Valletta, the Triton Fountain, it goes back to 1960. Design of a Maltese artist. One seems to be working at the moment. Usually it does, and at night it's lit up. It's right behind the statue that you see right in front of you here, saying 1913. That's when the first Eucharistic, international Eucharistic meeting was held here in Malta. That deserved a monument.
And God forbid you take the fruit.
And we had all those old buses, like the one we saw when we just left Medina. Lovely colors all around here, but it was quite noisy, busy. And in 2018, Valletta was the European Capital of Culture. And for that occasion, they pedestrianized the whole area around the fountain, which is a much nicer entrance into a capital. As you can see, the bus station, bus terminus has been put to the side on the right, and we have modern buses there, even electric buses. some photographs, and at the other side I will stop near the map of Valletta so we can show you the street plan before we enter Valletta itself. Please look.
Malta bayram diye bir ikram edebilirsiniz. Tam bir son şey var. Haç, Malta haçı var. Ona işte aslında seküler bir şey olmadı.
Route she walked in Valletta, Queen Elizabeth. And the first one of these round shields that I mentioned is right where I'm standing now, in the paving. Now, between 2010 and 2015, there was a restoration project in Valletta, led by Renzo Piano, very famous Italian architect. And what he did, well, we used to have an arch here. Yeah, when you go into a fortification, you go through an arch in the wall, and we used to have one, but he took it away and he put this modern design instead of it. If you like it, that's personal taste. No, we prefer the arch as well. But well, it's what it is. But it's a line. Come to the left side. We have some space here. It's a line with the large building on the right in front that he designed as well. And next to the new parliamentary building. This has been here for the past 10 years. And although it's modern in style, it's done in limestone, so that's why it does blend in well with the rest. And you can see there's like a pattern in the wall. He was very much inspired by Maltese lace making, bobby lace. Yeah, it is still being done here. The steps as well were designed by him, on the left and on the right. We have a lot of steps in Valletta. Since the knights were wearing armor and the streets are steep, lots of paving, they had these steps. Not very high, but very long. So they were able to some shade. So the beautiful building on the left side with the lovely closed balconies, that is from the 17th century and it's called the Ferraria. Comes from the word ferro, which means iron, and this is where the weapons were being made. Originally, again, there were no windows in the facade. It was built like a fortress, and these buildings were all designed by a military architect called Girolamo Cassar. And military architect simply meant that everything was built functionally, so straight and plain with no windows. They all have a very large pool, and it portrays the two men who designed Valletta. So on the left is Francesco Leoparelli. He designed the street system of Valletta, and on his right is this military architect Girolamo Cassar. And if you look carefully, yeah, we come to this square where you see another statue right in front of you. That is the Grand Master of John Parkinson. Now you can guess he was the Grand Master who ordered Valletta to be built. In fact, he had a roll of papers in his hand with the plans of Valletta on it. He never saw it completed because he died before the town was completely finished. And he was buried in the church that we're going to pass very soon. But then when their main church, St. John's Co-Cathedral, was built, which we will be passing later on, they moved him in the crypt over there. But that's where the town is. Yeah, and this church here on the right side, this is the oldest building in Valletta. It's the church dedicated to Our Lady of Victories to commemorate the great siege of the Turkish Ottomans in 1565. I mentioned that first the walls were built and then the buildings of the knights, and they were Catholic, so their church was just as important as the fortification wall, and they were built simultaneously. So it dates back to 1500s. On the left is a street parallel to the main street. This is Merton Street. We'll pass through that as well a bit later on. But we're heading now for this very large building coming up on your left. We'll stop a bit. I was already swearing. Okay, you have what looks like a chapel or church coming up here. The Malta Stock Exchange here right in front. An old church. And we're walking towards the upper Baracca Gardens, which were recreational gardens of the Italian Knights, where they were able to relax a little bit, but also keep an eye out to the entrance of the harbour. It wasn't botanical, that was done by the British. And today it's a nice garden for the locals who work in Valletta. There are lots of offices here of government departments, so they can spend their lunch break in a bit of a green area in the city. And here on the left, just before we go in, you see a typical Valletta street. Just go find some place maybe by the water. Yeah, and of course here on the left side, a typical Valletta street goes steep down, up again, and at the far end you can see the sea. Looks a little bit like San Francisco, but then without the tram. People say, I don't know. If you wish to remain in Valletta, I'm going to show you where you can take the lift down and walk to the ship. From here, taking the lift down and the walk will take you 15 minutes. Maximum.
Fire.
So, find yourself a spot here for the view. So it's large, but it has been derelict for many years. But that is where they built movie sets. So the Colosseum of the Gladiator movie was partly constructed in there. Okay? Then, slightly to your left in front, you see another building on top of a hill with columns there, building with columns. That's the villa of Biggie, Italian knight with the name Biggie had it built. And under the British, it was a naval hospital where all the sick and injured British soldiers of the Mediterranean were taken to be taken care of. Today, it houses a science museum. Right ahead of us, we see another peninsula with a large fortress that is Vittoriosa. And that fortress is Fort St. Angelo, and that was the headquarters of the knights when they were here from 15.
What's the weather like at Carricklinga?
This is the house where Napoleon stayed the only 6 days he was in Malta. He only stayed 6 days, but he stayed in style. On the left side is Auberge d'Italie. So this was another auberge, but of the Italian knights. Another building from the 16th century, which was then embellished with windows and decorations later on. If you look inside, look, it's a very large portrait. Look how much light can come in and why they did not need the windows in the facade. And this place is a fine art museum. Museums in Malta is 2025 today. As entrance into the so you might have a chance to visit something if you like. They did not have a church connected to the building, but it's here on the left. The church dedicated to Saint James, which in Spanish is Santiago, from Santiago de Compostela. This church also is from mid-17th century, but as you can see, it needs restoration work. Look at all the stones with the holes, and they do have to do some restoration work on it. And it's used on occasions, but by groups of people from different countries. So sometimes there's mass for people from the Philippines or from African countries, for instance. They have been given this church for their celebrations and gatherings. The remainder of this street, Merchant Street, is full with tables and chairs. Lots of eateries. You definitely won't go hungry here. And usually happy hour from 4 onwards, unless it's all day. And the now, if you want to try something real local as food, you have to try the rabbit. Huh? The rabbit is either fried in garlic or served as a stew. It is the most traditional dish in Malta. road here, and then to your right you can look down towards the harbour again. And you can see how steep the streets are going down. And you just wait for a in the main road, and then I can give you a little free time.
Yeah.
Essa da na folha da na
The Grand Master Palace is right at the heart of
instance. So it's definitely not a goodbye, it's until we meet again. And in Maltese, when we say goodbye, we say saha. Saha, which means goodbye, good health. And when we have a glass of beer or wine and we say cheers, we say saha as well. So we wish you saha and enjoy your time, the rest of your time here in Malta today and tomorrow. We thank Victor for driving us around. Thank you, Victor. It's comfortable bus. And do make sure that when you leave the bus in a minute, you take everything with you. Don't leave any belongings behind, okay? Double check, please. And well, hope you enjoyed it and you're satisfied with our service. So just in case, I mean, if here, this is along the quay, so you walk all this part here down here where you see those people walking on the right down. Yeah, this is walking from the ship. Keep past that old bus, and then maybe 15 meters further on the left there is traffic lights, and you see Baraka lift. So the whole part from there, that's what we're going to try to check out. That is what you have to walk to get to the lift. It's very, very nearby. Also, of course, next to the ship there's a promenade with some restaurants and shops as well, so you don't have to go far if you want to eat something local. And there's a very nice, we have Mediterranean cuisine, and there's some souvenir shops where we sell glass, ceramics, and some other souvenirs you might want to look for. And that's all next to the ship before you go to the tunnel to go back to the ship, okay? Because you have to go through a tunnel in the terminal to make your way back to the ship because of security reasons. So we're going to drop you here. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Hola.